Hi, welcome to Media in the Mountains, a broadcast about media-related businesses in Vermont. I'm your host, Spencer Hobbs. My guest today is Mike Garber, the director at Esc4pe Reality Games, a premium escape room experience. An escape room is a live-action interactive puzzle game which must be completed in an allotted time period. Mike and his team have successfully crowdfunded their first room in June of 2016, right in downtown Burlington, and have been building traction with additional pop-up events and rooms ever since. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Spencer.
For my first question, I wanted to ask just what is your background like? Do you have you studied games or engineering, or is this just a passion project?
Well, actually, my background is in high-rise window cleaning, so not a direct line right into the game design world. But I did grow up in the 70s and the 80s, so I kind of came of age as the Atari 2600 was coming out. I was getting out of diapers.
Okay.
The video game sort of evolution happened sort of as I was growing up, and I definitely played a lot of video games. So if that's an education, I could say I had that one.
Who's to say? Yeah. Well, why did you decide to make an escape room? I assume it came partially from liking video games, but it's not just that. I wanted to know what your biggest inspirations are and what is your favorite thing about it?
Well, honestly, I was sort of unhappy with my career at the time, and I was looking for a new business to get into. I wanted to get away from building services and the construction industry and just get into something that was more fun, based maybe into the entertainment or a tour operator or something like that. And as I was looking around at different opportunities, I actually stumbled upon escape games as a business model. I had never heard of them. Someone said, hey, you should look into this new thing that's happening called escape games. I started to do some research and realized that it was something that was growing rapidly, and I hadn't even noticed. So I did some quick research and found that there was an escape game near where I was living at the time in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I went out and played the game, and it was a lot of fun. I did a little bit more research and found out that they were growing at a kind of a crazy rate.
Yeah.
There was games popping up in every city all around the country. Almost every week there was new games opening. And I did a little more research and found out that the only state in the country that didn't have an escape game was Vermont. And since I grew up here, and I had always been thinking of potentially moving back to Vermont at some point, I said, well, maybe this is the time. Let me run back to Vermont and see if I can set up one of these new businesses in Burlington. So that's how I started.
Yeah, you've said some of your inspirations, like in video games, are like kind of escape room video games, like puzzle games like Portal or Myst and things like that. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of where that came from?
Well, I do definitely remember the first time I played Myst. It was like something. I think for a lot of people that played Myst when it first came out, they were pretty surprised at the leap that it took from what I was experiencing, more on console-based games. This sort of what seemed like an open world. There was no enemies. There was no real instructions. You just sort of wake up in this environment, and you just have to look around and figure out what you're supposed to do, what the story is, and the story sort of progressively reveals itself as you play the game. And that was extremely engaging to me, to the point where I think I probably logged about 30 or 40 hours on Myst before I gave up and just said, well, I'm going to need more help before I'm going to be able to solve these puzzles. But that definitely left an impression on me. I didn't really get deeply into gaming beyond Myst for some reason. I took a few years of just sort of, I don't know, I got into some driving games. I didn't really continue with the puzzle game platform. But then life happened. I got married, had children, and video games were sort of a waste of time. So I could only do so much of it without getting in trouble with my wife.
Yeah.
So I was always a fan of like TV shows like MacGyver. I don't have like an engineering background, or I'm not a chemist or anything like that, but I was really intrigued by that sort of the A-team and making things yourself and solving problems with creative solutions. And so that interest in the puzzle platform video game, and then this interest in sort of the do-it-yourself engineering problem solver.
Self-discovery kind
Self-discovery, yeah, that sort of came together for me in this escape room idea. And that's what got me really excited about doing it, because I wanted to see how those things came together and how I could turn that into an experience that other people would enjoy.
Very interesting, yeah. So I said a little bit at the beginning, I mentioned you used a crowdfunding source to get your first room off the ground. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the development, and you used Kickstarter, I think.
Yes, we did.
And just getting a spot in downtown Burlington, that's pretty impressive. Can you talk a little bit about development?
Well, this whole process for me has been a huge learning experience right from the very beginning. I was sort of diving into the deep end of the pool, and I was already aware of the fact I didn't know how to swim. So the Kickstarter was just one example of me trying something out that I had really very little experience with. And the thing with Kickstarter is, it's built on social connections. And as I had mentioned, I was living in North Carolina, and I moved back to Burlington after 20 years of being away to start this. So I really didn't have those social connections that make Kickstarters work very well. So although we did successfully fund our Kickstarter, we had a really low goal, and it was substantially funded by friends and family that lived elsewhere that maybe weren't even that interested in escape games. It was a little early on escape game awareness, especially in Vermont. Like most people, when we were first building the room, had no idea what an escape room was. They were even a little suspicious, like, well, what is this? You're going to lock people in the basement? How does that sound like fun? But although we did get a little bit of help from a few local people who did know about escape games and were excited to see that one was finally going to pop up here in Burlington. Predominantly, what happened as far as funding is the old bootstrap style, where we were all in. Personally funded it. We got a lot of help from people that didn't ask for money. They just were excited to see this game sort of coming together. We were able to get some interested students from Champlain that were studying game design to come down and help. We also got some people from the Generator that were just interested in making a game or making props. So basically the way I got started was I came to Burlington, and I knew I was going to need people that could help me build this game. So I went directly to the Generator and joined, and just started talking up the idea and meeting people that had a various array of skills and had a little free time that they were willing to contribute to help me sort of put my ideas into reality, and also give me some good advice on which ideas I should probably put on the shelf until we had a little bit more experience. And so that's what happened. The other thing I did was, and this actually came as a result of doing some reading on, like, what do I need to do? How do I need to build one of these games? I read this book about the art of game design. I think it's a textbook for college students that are studying game design.
Champlain,
Yep. But one of the suggestions in there was just you need to learn how to listen really well in order to be a game designer, because basically what it's saying is there's so much involved in designing games that nobody really knows everything that you need in order to bring a good game together. And I knew that I was at the top of the list of people who didn't know everything, so I was going to need to listen to a lot of advice. So I actually took a class on improv from the Vermont Comedy Club. And that class actually was hugely helpful for me to just learn how to stop talking up my idea and listen to other people's input. And that helped me a lot to really find people that were willing to contribute, even if it was just contributing advice or ideas.
Yeah, so it really was more of it's a real crowdfunding experience, more than just financial. Yeah, a lot of ideas, collaboration coming together.
And I think Burlington's great for that. Just like the Burlington vibe is definitely very helpful and community oriented, and everyone was willing to pitch in a little bit to sort of help the vision kind of become a reality.
Great. Well, speaking of that, just wanted to know how you met your team and if they shared the passions that you have.
The team is constantly evolving. There were people that were involved very early that stopped working with me, and there were other people that have just come on the team and are very excited to help with that as we're continuing to progress very recently. So I feel kind of like the business is almost more like a band where I'm like the lead singer and I have various musicians that come in and play at different times, and it kind of contributes to the overall sound of the music. That's the way the business has been going. Is we've had a lot of different people that have been involved at different times. They've had input or added a little bit to the way things work, and here we are. There isn't really a well-established team, as it were, that are on staff permanently, but definitely a lot of people came in from Generator. That's a great resource for me, and then also the game design students from Champlain. That's part of the team that I've been actively recruiting, because they're interested in working with me to build portfolio, or to build experience in the game design world in a professional setting, but also a very open-ended setting, because I don't have a very strict process. So I'm actually learning a lot from the students as they come in and explain what they're learning in class about how to develop games, and they're bringing that experience to me and how to develop games that they're actually not doing just as a class project, but we're actually building the games, putting them out into production, and then having customers come in and play. And that's actually a really interesting aspect of it, is where the game design students are maybe more familiar with building a game that they sell or release, and then people play it and they don't get a lot of feedback. With escape games, you build the game and then you watch everyone play it. And that's actually really good resource for the designer to get constant feedback of how people are liking the game, how the game's flowing, what's working, what's not working, what's too easy, what's too hard. And you also get a really positive reaction when people have like an aha moment, or when they're successful, or even when they fail. You really see the emotional response people are having to the game. That's a satisfying feeling for me as a game designer, and I think also for the people most of the people that are working as game controllers, like watching the game being played, most of them had some impact or some input on the game they're watching be played. So they actually kind of feel a little ownership as well, and I think that's a nice aspect of the escape game.
Yeah, so you would say that you don't try to design these too difficult, to have them be too difficult. You're thinking about it a lot, and you're fine-tuning it as you go on. Because I think you said to me that you are afraid people will think that it will be too hard or too scary going in. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so escape games are a new experiential entertainment product, you could say. And they've only really been around for the past 5 or 6 years, depending on how you look at it, in the States. So really we're just starting to learn, or people are just starting to learn about escape games, what they are, what they're not. And a lot of people right off the bat had sort of a negative impression. We've had people that are concerned that it's going to be too scary. People that are concerned that they're going to have like a claustrophobic reaction to being locked in a room. And the process of people sort of becoming aware of what they are and what they're not is progressing along. There's definitely some escape games that are scarier than others. Ours tend not to be overly scary. But we also have fire codes and building regulations that keep us from doing things like actually locking people in a room or restraining them in different ways. So it's really not about physically being locked or imprisoned in a cell. The door in our escape game, the doors are actually left unlocked, and that's part of the imagination that you have to think they're locked in. Yes, they're only thinking they're locked in, or they're actually being sent on a mission. So the game is to figure out what the mission is and then accomplish the mission. And the mission is not to get out the door, because the door is unlocked in case you need to go to the bathroom, or heaven forbid something bad happens. You can always leave. But really you're staying in the game to try to accomplish the mission.
I like that. Yeah, well, that's good. Good to get that message out there.
It's not scary.
It's not scary. It's fun.
I will say that there are a lot of escape companies that are outgrowths of haunted house companies.
Okay.
And so they're bringing a large amount of experience with creating props that are technologically advanced. They're building sets that are, really engaging, and their experience being sort of more in the fright direction.
Yeah, trying to
Definitely comes forward. So there are some escape games that are way more on the haunted end of things than ours. And those I would not say are not scary. I think that some of them are very scary, and they're adding the level of interaction with the participants, because now the participants aren't just walking through a scary situation. They're stuck in a scary situation until they solve a puzzle and get themselves out of the scary situation, which can be even more frightening.
Yeah, I think when I hear that concern, I don't think this scary is talking specifically about like jump scares or like scary situations or gore or anything like that, but more like you were saying, like the fear of being stuck somewhere, like claustrophobia, being afraid that you won't be able to ever get out. It's more, because with this haunted house stuff, those are just cheap scares. They're trying to put you in a certain mood, but once it's done, it's done. And I think people, when they're saying they're afraid of it being scary, they're not talking about like skeletons and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's different.
There's definitely a certain amount of anxiety that can be induced by the idea that you have to solve a problem in order to get through the challenge, because that changes from like scare that's going to be caused by a ghost or something saying boo, to sort of more almost like an ego thing, like, oh, my intelligence is going to be challenged and I have to like be smart enough to solve this puzzle.
Yeah.
But that's another thing we can kind of try to remove too much of that anxiety, because we're not putting there's no calculus in these rooms. There's no advanced chemistry. I mean, most of the puzzles are designed to be solvable by an average person or an average team in 3 minutes or 4 minutes of just sort of analyzing the different pieces and how they might fit together. But we stack up enough of those challenges where you have to be efficient, you have to communicate well with your team, and maybe you have to do a little out-of-the-box thinking in order to solve all of the puzzles within the 60 minutes. So most teams don't struggle too hard with any individual puzzle, but it definitely takes a good cohesive teamwork effort to accomplish everything within the time limit. So.
Yeah, I think you've told me that you prefer larger groups.
Well, we require at least 4 people to play the game, just because some of the puzzles are actually designed to take multiple people in different places in the room in order to solve the puzzle. And we also have noticed that the social dynamics of a group of 4 are vastly different than a group of 3, and definitely than a group of 2. Yeah. So at 4 people, something sort of magical starts to happen in a team where people are bringing different approaches to the puzzles, or bringing different ideas. There's also more eyes, ears, and hands sort of checking out the room and finding different things that go together. So really at 4 people, the rooms start to work. We design the rooms to have a capacity of 8 to 10 people. So anywhere between 4 and 8 seems to be like a good sized group. And our new room that's just about to come out is actually 2 8-person rooms that are identical side by side.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we can have a group of 16. We divide them into 2. They're sort of the red team and the blue team, and they go into the identical challenge side by side, and it's a little bit of a head-to-head challenge to see who can solve the puzzles and get out first.
That's awesome.
So we're really excited to see how that's going to come together. We've had a lot of requests for larger teams that want to come in and play our games. And right now we have a room of 8 and a room of 10. So we could have a group of 18 playing all at the same time, but they're having different experiences. They're playing a different story. So this way we'll be able to have a group that's larger like that, both play the same experience, have the same story, be able to share stories and notes with each other after they play, and yet they have also had this added aspect of competing head to head. So we're excited to see how that goes.
Cool. Going off of that, do you notice Does a leader ever emerge?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, people become followers.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I feel actually like game mastering, like or we call it game mastering or game controlling, like where you're sitting in the back room, delivering hints. We're watching and listening the game as it progresses through security cameras, and it's an education. Actually, watching group dynamics develop, evolve, and definitely what seems to happen is there are leaders that sometimes are already leaders of their group because of the dynamics of that group when they come into the room. And they might take a leadership role at the beginning of the game. Sometimes that goes well. Frequently it goes poorly.
Okay.
Because other people are waiting for the leader to tell them what to do. But that's not really how escape games work. It takes everyone trying hard and contributing to the group success, bringing their ideas together, and then seeing what the best idea is. So a lot of times those sort of group hierarchies where there's a leader and there's sort of underlings, those dynamics have to sort of level out in order for the team to progress well. And I think that's why the games work so well for businesses that are looking for workforce development, because it really enforces that idea or reinforces that idea that everyone needs to bring their ideas to the group, and the leaders need to value the input that their team members are bringing. I know that's something that is a lesson I've learned just by watching people play my game, that's something I should do more in the business, is listen to my team more. And so, I don't know, it's kind of an unforeseen benefit that I think is really valuable about the escape experience. And I'm excited to see where that goes and kind of keep developing that.
I thought it was interesting that once more about the time limit and the lock-in stuff. Like once the time limit's up, people tend to kind of get disinterested. Like they drop the puzzle that they're doing if they don't finish in time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the things that was a surprise to me when I started looking into this whole process, I actually went to the trade show for escape games. There's such a thing.
Trade show?
Yeah, there's actually there's a trade show where you go and there's seminars about designing games and everything from how to deal with fire codes to how to add high-tech props to your games. There's people that are selling fog machines. There's people that are selling articulated monsters from the haunted house world. There's people who are selling complete escape game businesses as a franchise. So it's really a great resource to sort of see where the industry's going, what products are available. I went to one of those and I listened to a seminar that was put on by a guy who started the Escape the Room with a Zombie show, which is actually like a really popular and pretty successful escape company. I think he's got 20 or 30 locations all around the country. But he comes from a background of experience production. So he was involved in the Color Run and the Tomato Fight. I don't know if you've heard of any of these things, the Mud Run. Sort of these experiences that you go, these experiential entertainment events that you would go to just kind of things that you're just not normally going to do. Like go and have a huge snowball fight with rotten tomatoes.
Okay.
It's not something you do on a regular basis, but he puts this event on in various cities around the country, and has for a few years. So anyway, that guy has a lot of experience with what makes experiences fun. Mm-hmm. And he talks a lot about, in that seminar that I went to, he talks a lot about the different brain chemistry releases that experiences cause. And one of the things that I really took away from that conversation was this idea of designing experiences that purposely put people in situations where they have endorphin releases, or put people in situations where they have adrenaline releases, or even oxytocin releases. So these different brain chemicals, again, I'm not a chemist, but I realized that what he was talking about was actually really important to put into the design process of the game, and just by simple things. And the time limit is really one of them, because that time limit, that time crunch, we're all naturally sort of programmed to really try hard when there's a time limit. And the countdown at the last minute, 60, 59, that creates these like releases in our body.
Certainly.
And definitely you do see like the seconds go down, and once they hit 0, people are like, oh, and there's a big letdown.
Big release.
Big release. And then they're interested to hear, well, okay, we failed at this challenge, but come in and tell us how this all works.
Yeah.
And so we do that every game that doesn't quite finish all of the puzzles, as we go in and we explain how they work, we answer any questions, we call it the debrief. And that, I think that gives a certain kind of closure to the group that just played the game, and it also is a certain satisfying release of some chemicals, I'm sure, where people go, oh,
yeah,
that's how it came together. That makes sense now. So
kind of like the cherry on top of the whole
it's the
experience.
cherry on top of the experience, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, the cherry on top is the group photo that we do at the end, like this one here.
Yeah, that's good.
So.
Memories forever.
Yep, there you go.
I just thought, what is replayability like? Do people ever come back?
Replayability is the holy grail of the escape room industry. Everyone talks about it.
Really?
Yeah, because coming from the game design world, replayability is a very important aspect that you want to build into a game. Is this game fun to play? And is it fun to play over and over and over and over again?
Mm-hmm.
And the essential answer currently is there's no such thing as replayable escape games.
Really?
There are some people that are trying. They're doing different things to try and make it replayable. But a lot of the industry has just said, you know what, maybe someday we'll come up with a way to make these replayable, but for now, let's just not try. So it's more like a movie, where once you've seen a movie, especially a mystery movie, it's really not that much fun to watch the same movie over again when you already know what the answer is.
Yeah.
If people want to come back and play the game over again, already knowing the answers to all the puzzles, they're certainly welcome to buy tickets. But it's probably not going to be that much fun. And we're okay with that. As far as replayability, what we're looking for is to get people who have come in and play our first game to come back and play our second game. And now we have a third game that we're opening. And we're already in the design process for our fourth game, which will probably replace our first game. So we're just going to change them out, almost like a theater changes out movies, to keep moviegoers coming back.
Well, did you ever think, I'm sure there's some people who enjoy maybe, as you might say, speed running.
Speed running, yes.
Kind of trying to beat their own times. Do you ever get people who want to like see how quickly they can finish them?
We've had a couple groups come back and play the same room again. Usually they had a few new members. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I haven't had a lot of real speedrunners. I can tell you that our game controllers, the people who are working behind the scenes, we sort of speedrun on resetting the game.
Okay.
So we've gotten resetting the game down to about 4 minutes. So people go in and tear the room apart for an hour, and then we're about 4 minutes usually replacing everything, resetting all the locks, putting all the hints and clues back where they go. So there's definitely some competition among our staff for who's the fastest resetter. But as far as speedrunning escape games, I guess I could make another connection to like the rock climbing world.
Yeah.
So rock climbing problems are fun to do over and over and over again, but there's this thing called red pointing. I think it's called red pointing. It's been a while since I was in the rock climbing world. But that's where you show up with no information and climb a brand new problem that you've never tried before from the bottom to the top, first time. So I think in speedrunning with escape games, that's kind of something that will develop as the difficulties of games get more easily and more accurately rated. If you had a game that was rated at a very, very difficult, and your team of escape room players was able to come in and complete it, then you might start to have a, who was able to do it the fastest. I mean, we do keep records of the leaderboard of who is the fastest team, but it's never teams that have played the game before. Because I think teams that have played the game before, if you were really good at it, you should be able to play the game as fast as we can reset the game. And not a lot of people are going to want to pay for a ticket to run through my game in 5 minutes.
Yeah. So you would say right now there's not really a place for speedrunning in the escape room medium?
Not for replaying the same game in speedrunning. But
Okay.
I definitely think, I mean, everyone's trying to do it as fast as they can.
Yeah.
When they have never played the game before. So I think that's really more what the game is all about, is facing the challenge with no information and thinking creatively enough to complete the game in less than 60 minutes. I mean, right now we've had a couple teams that have completed the game in less than 30 minutes with no hints. Wow. And that's pretty impressive. It's impressive to watch, especially when for people who are involved in designing the puzzles, they watch people solve the puzzles, and you're like, yes, exactly, that's what you're supposed to think. But we're used to seeing lots of teams come in and they're trying various different solutions, or maybe they're kind of getting caught up on things that don't really go together, or they're arguing about how they should think about the logic in the puzzle. And we're watching that saying, oh yeah, okay, I can see how they thought that way, or oh, that seems like that's maybe a bad idea that they're spending too much time thinking about. But when you see a team come in and they just get it, they get what you were thinking, and they put the puzzles together and they follow the logic and they follow the path the shortest way through. It's a team like that you're like, wow, what do you guys do for a living?
Yeah.
What is it that makes a team like that so successful? So
yeah. Well, going off of that, do you have any crazy stories? Any weird happenings, teams?
Well, we had an engagement in the room at one point. Yes, they actually called ahead and arranged it, but we put an engagement ring inside of one of our safes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that group was they played the game to the point where the couple found the ring. They made the proposal. The proposal was accepted. They didn't pause the time, and they continued on, and they still completed the game.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was awesome. quite an impressive group.
Yeah, that is cool.
So that was kind of an interesting happening. And then one of our record-holding teams is actually the local roller derby team. I'm not quite sure what it is about roller derby, but boy, they were really impressive as an escape game team.
Wow.
And they laid down one of the fastest runs that we've had so far. They're still on the leaderboard with the fastest time.
Do you recall what it is?
29 minutes and 18 seconds or something like that, I think. Yeah. They might have gotten one hint, but I don't think so.
Okay. Cool. So this is just a few wacky questions,
Go for it.
If you have any insider knowledge, beginner tips you wanted to share, some secrets you might be able to let slip.
Sure. I would say my biggest word of advice when you're putting together your team for an escape game is to try and bring a variety of people.
Okay.
And by variety, I mean if you have a 7-year-old, they're a great asset to an escape game team.
The mind of the child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thinks differently.
Yep. And it's also great to have an artist,
okay,
an engineer, or someone with an engineering mindset, and a retiree.
Really?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Well, just those different personalities, different experiences in life, and those sort of different maybe styles of problem solving or intelligence, people that are from different generations. That's really where teams seem to get their value, is to have a variety of people on the team. And those are the teams that we've seen be the most successful.
Or just be a roller derby team, right?
Yeah, well, the roller derby team, those guys don't do that for their day job, so I asked them.
Yeah.
And they had, I think, someone who was a psychology student, someone who worked with children with special needs, someone who was an engineer.
Oh, okay.
And so they had that mix.
All right, yeah.
They didn't have the 7-year-old, but they are roller derbyers, so maybe they all have a little inner child going on.
Maybe. So yeah, just we touched on it a little bit while talking, but I just wanted to ask about what you have. You have 2 rooms now. What you have in store for the future, and are you planning to just expand your one location, or maybe in the future you have dreams of having multiple escape reality game locations?
Sure. Well, like I said, the escape industry is new and sort of evolving rapidly. There are people that are taking escape games in different directions. Some are bringing them into the school systems. as an educational tool.
Okay.
That's really exciting. We've actually worked with a few of the local high schools and even some schools from further away that were developing, building and designing an escape game around a certain kind of curriculum, or even just the process of building an escape game as an educational experience in itself. So that's an exciting direction that we've kind of looked into a little. There's also this idea of pop-up escape games, small portable games that could be brought to outdoor festivals or even private parties. That would be like a 15-minute game experience that happens inside of a small space with only a few puzzles, but it gives people a taste of the experience. So we've developed a pop-up game. We're actually just in the beginning stages of planning to be at the Oktoberfest down on the waterfront. And last year we were able to put our pop-up game on Church Street for a few days.
Oh, thanks. Sorry.
We also popped up our escape game at the farmers market a couple Saturdays, so that was really nice. So that's one direction. We're definitely interested in expanding. Right now our theme is very tied into the whole hacker spy kind of an idea, and we're sort of looking for where we can take that theme as far as next rooms go. I'm also interested in exploring completely different themes, maybe something that's got more of a Vermont flair, like we've toyed around with ideas that involve maple syrup, maybe some ice cream or mountain travel, flannel, skiing. I'm not sure where we're going to go with our next themes.
Those are definitely buzzwords of Vermont.
Yeah, we'll put those all in a pot, stir it around, and see what comes out.
Yeah, cool. Well, real quick, with the pop-up rooms, do you kind of pull from your existing rooms, or are they completely original?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So as we develop, or sort of as we hone our game design skills, we're trying out different ideas, and the pop-up games have different requirements. Usually, everything's going to have to be very mobile. It's a lot easier if things are not running on electricity. So you want things that are less tech-driven. So we are interested in having the pop-up games sort of raise awareness of our brick-and-mortar business. But because they're sort of lightweight and shorter and easier to design, it's also sort of a way we can workshop new ideas. So we're kind of looking at the pop-up thing as a little bit of both, a little bit of continuing our existing theme and then maybe trying out different ideas and seeing what kind of puzzles people respond well to.
Cool. Yeah, can't exactly lock people in a tent, right?
We can make them think that they're locked in a tent.
Hey. Yeah. Great. Well, I just have one silly question left.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask, who is Agent 802? I was going on your Instagram a little bit, and you had lots of glitched out images kind of referencing him. That plays into the lore. You have a large lore surrounding all your rooms. So.
Yeah, we're trying to develop our backstory more and more, because that helps us to say, well, okay, this is the backstory, and where does the backstory go? So that informs what our next game should be. And Agent 802 is obviously a little bit of a reference to 007, but bringing the 007 idea to like something everyone recognizes as Vermont. Who Agent 802 is a good question.
Shrouded in mystery.
A little bit, yeah. But what we do is teams who come into play, we sort of bring them on as agents. So really, when you come to play, you are Agent 802. And we're sending you and your team of new agents into a mission experience or a mission scenario. But as far as the lore goes, I guess he's the secret super hacker spy that is just beyond everyone's reach.
Interesting. And then just I wanted to talk about the 4 in Escape. That's supposed to be, I don't know, internet speak, would you call it, for an A? In place of the A?
Yes, it's definitely, it's actually from something called Leet Speak, which kind of came out of the hacker scene in the 80s, this idea of changing letters for numbers over either in passwords or in file names. It was a way to kind of create really simple layer of security or whatnot. The true story is that it was an idea that I had when I was looking for a website name to get a nice short name. But it also fit into the hacker theme pretty nicely, so we just went with it. A lot of people have asked me what the 4 means.
Yeah.
And that's something that actually escape games contribute to, is sort of looking at the world in this sort of, ooh, maybe that means something more. Maybe that means something different. Maybe that means something that I didn't see right off the bat.
Yeah, what's hidden under the surface?
Yeah, what's hidden under the surface. And I think that when people come in, they're already thinking that a little bit, and they're looking around our lobby for like what might be a hint.
Right.
And I hope that when they leave, that's how they're looking at the world around them. A little more magic in the world when you leave for a few hours anyway, after playing an escape game, because you're wondering, maybe that means something. Maybe that goes together somehow.
What's behind that door?
How are we going to solve the code?
Yeah, that's great. Well, does it ever make problems like saying it? I don't know. You don't say Esc4pe.
Yeah, it's a little hard to figure out how to explain how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're giving your email to someone over the phone.
Yeah.
It does create a little bit of trouble.
For an A.
Yeah, and I've heard that it's not great for SEO, although we are being found on the internet now thanks to some help.
No, it's definitely a unique name. It's easy to find.
Yeah, once people know that they spell it with a 4, we come up #1 on Google.
Yeah.
But when you're searching for escape rooms, people don't usually misspell escape with the number 4 in there instead of an A. So we miss a little bit of that, but it's starting to come around.
Great. Well, that's all I have. Thank you very much for coming on and talking to us. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. It's a nice chat.
Thanks a lot for watching Media in the Mountains. If you want to learn more about Escape Reality Games, you can go to escape.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. We got a lot of great stuff.